Support for Pop of Culture comes from Stallings Wealth Management. Daniel Stallings, financial advisor. Securities and advisory services offered through Cetera Advisors, LLC. Member FINRA/SIPC, a broker/dealer, and registered investment advisor. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity.
When he walks into the room and he looks at all the tests on the table, and he picks mine up and he says, "Well, this is what you're using, right?" And they said, "No."
This week on Pop of Culture, the inventor of the home pregnancy test takes us through the story of its birth. A play about the invention is opening Off-Broadway, and we get a peek behind the scenes.
Later, we gather up NPR's favorite books of 2025. That and more coming up. Support for Pop of Culture comes from Stallings Wealth Management, the Innovation Connector, and from you. With state and federal money eliminated, you are the difference in keeping local programming on the air at IPR. Become a member today at indianapublicradio.org. From IPR, this is Pop of Culture. I'm Luke Jones.
And I'm Michelle Kinsey. Before women had any real autonomy in their reproductive health, there was Meg Crane. Her invention, the first home pregnancy test, changed the way millions of people learned life-changing news. Yet her story was rarely told. Now, a play called Predictor, written by Ball State Theater professor and Pop of Culture host Jennifer Blackmer, tells the story of Meg's groundbreaking work and her fight to bring it to the public. Today, we are joined by Meg Crane and playwright Jennifer Blackmer to talk about the invention, the play, and the lasting impact of one quiet revolution. Thank you both for joining us on Pop of Culture.
Oh, thank you. So wonderful to be here. Absolutely.
And thanks, Michelle. Weird to be on this side of the mic.
I know, right?
Good. Yeah, I love it.
Well, Meg, let's start with you. This story begins in the 1960s. Take us back, if you will, to that time when the idea of a home pregnancy test first came to you.
Well, I guess, the 60s were a very interesting period of time. We had, I think, the birth control pill just came around, and it was years before Roe v. Wade came up, and so I'm working at this pharmaceutical company, and by chance, I'm not doing anything to do with pregnancy tests at all. They hired me to work on some women's products they brought in that they hadn't worked on before and didn't have before. And so once in a while, I had to go to the laboratory to work on, see how the products were coming along. And I saw one day test tubes hanging on a wall, and they were suspended over a metal mirrored surface. And I asked what this thing is. And somebody told me, well, that's the pregnancy test that we do for doctors here. And I thought, wow, looking at that, it seemed like I could possibly make this into a form that women could use themselves. I mean, that's how it started.
Yeah. And
I became kind of obsessed with that, frankly. And so the more I thought about it, and I brought the idea to the executives at the company, and they absolutely, no, we lose our business, and how could you do this? Women can't do that, and on and on, and it's immoral, and all kinds of horrible stuff came up in their minds about what a simple pregnancy test would mean. And so that's how it all began, actually.
Meg, with that kind of resistance and people saying, nah, women should not have this kind of knowledge at home, what kept you moving forward? What was it about this that you knew you had to keep going and keep pushing?
Well, I knew women needed this, and many women, women my age, I was in my 20s, and because this is meant to be the sexual revolution time in the 60s, and people are, a little bit more, I'm not going to say loose about their activities, but the chance of people getting pregnant when they didn't mean to is also there. So, and I thought, boy, really, this is something that if women are wondering at all, they could find out pretty fast what's going on with them. And it wasn't just for the idea of abortion, actually. It was, I also knew women who, a good friend of mine who had this great job coming up in the New York Times, and then she realized she was pregnant, and she knew she could not take the job, and she'd already been signed up for it, and because you could not go into an office and hide the fact that you were pregnant. It's going to show sooner or later.
Right.
And they would be very upset, having trained you for a few months, to have to, fire you, which they would do. So other women, if they had any medical problems, they really want to know, how they can take care of a wanted pregnancy and all that sort of stuff. So I thought it was a great thing for women to have.
Yeah. And we should probably point out, Meg, at the time, in your 20s at this particular company, you were a graphic designer, right?
Yes, that's what I was there for. Yeah. But they were actually trying to make me into a product manager, which I'm not very good at. So it was complicated. It was a complicated job.
Yeah. So from that first day when you looked and you saw the test tubes and you started asking questions about the pregnancy test to the time when it was available for women at home, how much time are we talking about, Meg?
I'm thinking about this. It took a couple of years, which seemed like a long time at the time.
Yeah.
But overall, it really wasn't, because this was 1967, and it was on the market in Europe in 1971 and in Canada in 71. So that, considering everything else, it was pretty quick. It didn't get into the U.S. market because the FDA got into the story, and they had to approve it and go through the whole kind of business. And so it took 10 years before it was available in the U.S., like
Wow.
1977.
Well, it certainly sounds like your persistence paid off. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons why maybe Jen Blackmer was interested in telling this story. Jen, how did you hear about this story? What was it that you felt like, I've got to tell this. I've got to get this out in the form of a play? What was it about Meg's story, Meg's creation, that made you want to take it to the next level?
Well, it's just like what she said, right? The fact that the test existed and was invented in the late 60s, early 70s, but we didn't have it here in this country for another 10 years. And Meg, who invented it, got no credit for it. So what happened was, it was in 2012, a writer from the New York Times was doing a regular series called Who Made That? So her name was Meg Kennedy, and she's very interested in sort of the history of invention.
Oh.
And so it's a really great series. It's these short essays about the things we use every day. And so Who Made That? There was one about the Ziploc bag. There was one about certain products like cans and all of these things that we just take for granted, right? So she did one about the home pregnancy test. Who made that home pregnancy test? And in that article, the home pregnancy test in America was credited to Insight Pharmaceuticals EPT early pregnancy test, and it came out in 1977. And so Meg saw that article, didn't you?
Yeah.
Meg saw the article and was like, okay, well, now this story is being told and my name is nowhere in it.
Wow.
And so it became a bit of a question, I think, for Meg moving forward.
Yeah.
And her partner, Ira, had just passed away. And we'll talk about Ira in a second. But so Meg got out the prototypes that she had designed and started investigating, well, how do I get this out there?
Yeah.
And the prototype was auctioned by Sotheby's, and it was purchased by the Smithsonian. So the Smithsonian now has one of Meg's early prototypes on display. And right around the time that was happening, Meg had reached out. Her family encouraged her to reach out to Meg Kennedy to say, hey, this isn't all of the story. And so after the prototype was auctioned and put into the Smithsonian, then Meg Kennedy contacted Meg and wrote a follow-up. And it's this sort of long and involved story about this. And you can actually, it's still available to be read.
Yes.
And so if you can imagine, it's summer of 2016. I'm sitting on my back porch and I, open the news and I see this article and the title is, "Can Women Be Trusted with Their Own Pregnancy Test?" And I'm like, what? Of course they can. And I click on it and I read the
power
article.
of a headline.
The power of a headline. I'm telling you, I sort of say to people, that's sort of like feminist clickbait, right?
Yeah.
That of course we're gonna click on that. And this article was Meg's story, and I was profoundly moved by it, and the idea that this very resilient and enterprising young woman actually made the thing well before she got credit for it. And there was also a description of this scene that happened for real in a conference room. And what struck me was that Meg decided, even though there had been pushback with her and they decided they were going to move ahead with this test and, get prototypes and get all of this input, not from her. It was her idea, but then that was it. So she had developed a prototype all on her own.
Yes.
And decided all on her own to sneak into this conference room where they were looking at prototypes and put her prototype on the table next to the three that were being discussed.
Which I think you need to describe what they looked like.
They were,
because they were trying to be kind of frilly and
Meg, you were there. You tell us what they look like.
Yeah.
Well,
but much different from yours. Yeah.
They're quite different from mine. Some of them had like squishy, sort of things you'd get bobby pins in Woolworths or something, and some were like a large decorated box with flowery things all over, and another had a tassel on the cap, and they were totally non-scientific. Let's start with that.
They were kind of ridiculous.
Quite ridiculous in that sense. And one had a little black pattern of diamond shapes around the circumference of this thing. Now, why would you do that? I have no idea. But and mine was very clinical.
Yeah.
And so I'd put mine down and well, I guess the next part of the story was the door opens and they'd hired advertising agency to work on this product, and in walks this very tall, beautiful man. I'm just absolutely, I don't know what happened, but I immediately was stunned by him. And I didn't know him. And he walks into the room and he looks at all the tests on the table and he picks mine up and he says, "Well, this is what you're using, right?" And they said, "No, this is something Meg did for talking purposes." That really stunned me. Like, not that it was my idea or anything else like that. So that was, and they couldn't afford to do it, by the way. It looked too expensive. They said only wealthy women could do this and all that kind of stuff. So I took off from work and I was freelancing, so I had to lose a bit of money to do this. But I found through the yellow pages, we didn't have computers or phones at that point. I found companies that made plastic things, and going from one to another, they would guide me a little bit more to say, no, this kind of company is better for this or whatever else, until I found a company that could actually do it and could do it for less than what the professional product designers were offering. So they had to use mine. There was no way around it.
Wow.
Yeah, it comes down to the almighty dollar at the end of the day, but she did all that work herself.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, not only did she come up with the idea, but then did all the legwork.
Yep.
And then did not get credit.
Yep.
Pretty much. That's yeah.
So that was what struck me, and as because I'm a playwright, I write plays, and as I was reading this article, I began to kind of see the story unfold. And there's always a why, why you do this or why you think this is important, and just this story needed to be told.
Yes,
because for so long, and this is one of the things that drives me as a writer, for so long we have buried or ignored or simply just forgotten women's contributions
yes.
to these things. And the fact that this is a woman's contribution to a woman's health product and issue, and she was undercut every time. I mean, it was like a woman designing a thing for women, and yet a bunch of men were saying, no, it doesn't work that way. And there's a sense of the ridiculous about it too. So anyway, so I had read the story and began kind of seeing this unfold. And I have worked for a very long time with a good friend of mine who's a producer. And he is out in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sent him a link to the article.
Mm.
And I said, so what do you think about this? I think it's a musical. And then about 5 minutes pass. And I get a text back from him and he goes, I love this. I think this is a wonderful idea. And then the next text was, it's not a musical. So that was the beginning because Brian, his name is Brian Nitzkin, and he's actually producing our current New York production, actually got to work, and he first tried to option the Times article, and that turned out to be too expensive.
Okay.
But, Meg is still living in New York and still, hanging around all the cool places in New York. And so he found Meg Crane on Facebook, of all things, and said, hey, we're interested in doing your story as a play. What do you think about that?
Meg, I've got to hear. What was your reaction when they said that to you?
Oh, I thought, because of the article, I started getting letters and emails and things and people wanting to make a movie, especially movies and all that sort of thing. And it was kind of overwhelming. And I was really kind of intrigued with the idea of a play. And no one else even proposed this. It was different. And so when we met online, we're talking on the phone at this point, the three of us, and I was so happy to meet Jen. I just knew somehow this is going to be the right thing.
Oh,
and it certainly was. I mean, I was so lucky finding her because she finding me, whatever, that we worked together on this, because it couldn't be better. I mean, she really understood deeply, I think, what was going on in this story. And I appreciate that so much, Jen.
Well, and I feel like I'm the lucky one, frankly, because your story is so important and it's so vital. And the thing that has never ceased to amaze me through this entire process is how, first of all, how wonderful it is knowing you, and also how resonant the story is. What's so strange is we had the play was mostly written and had been developed and was ready for its first round of productions at the end of 2019.
Oh,
so
yes.
So we had gone through.
And we all know what happened.
Oh yeah. We had gone through development and had readings, and I shared the script with Meg, which was I was terrified, but it turned out to be wonderful. And so we were ready to take this to the next level. And then, of course, the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And as we are working through that time, in 2022, in June, that's when Roe versus Wade fell.
Yep.
And the play, which was relevant, even though it's a historical story, it was very relevant, became even more relevant.
Yes.
And so that part, I think the part where we had to kind of put it on pause while the world was reeling is also, I think, a part of the play's story.
Yeah. I can totally see that.
The coincidence or the whatever of Roe being cut was really and I hate to say I'm happy that happened because it makes the play better. But it's really what happened, and now look what's going on. I'm overwhelmed all the time hearing stories about, especially Texas or other states where women are bleeding out in the in their cars in the parking lot waiting to be at the point of dying before somebody will take care of her. And all this stuff is terrible.
Yes.
I mean, this is unbelievable. And we have to deal with this. I mean, when's this going to go away?
Yeah, you think it'll be solved, but then, it's a step forward and, 4 steps backwards.
Yeah,
and
if not more. Yeah.
What's been very heartening in the productions sort of leading up to where we are now is that the play is a comedy. And that was surprising to me, but it's a comedy because a lot of what Meg underwent, the obstacles that are being put up to prevent the test from going to market, from being approved, from all of these different steps you have to go through, are really very silly.
Yeah.
And yet they're so similar to the arguments we hear today.
Mm-hmm. And I think it makes those things a little more digestible, right? When you can laugh about it, when you can take those things and you can still enjoy a play, but yet those messages, those things, that relationship to what happened then to Meg and what's happening right now as we speak. I think it goes down a little easier,
a little bit,
isn't it? Yeah,
it really brings the whole thing closer to reality. The laughing is fine because you're right about that, Jen. It's something that when you take off the cover, you see, oh my God, this stuff is pretty bad.
Yeah, this is how the sausage is made.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I want to make sure we get to the fact that the show has been produced a few times across the country, right, Jen?
Yes, we've been lucky enough to have 8 productions coming up before this. It's been everywhere from California to Rhode Island, Michigan, Nebraska, and Indianapolis.
Wonderful. And all of that leads us to what is happening in December.
Yeah, Meg, you want to say what's happening in December?
Yeah, it's very exciting for me because it's hometown and all that.
Yes.
So in this charming little off-Broadway theater, actually on West 45th Street, and it's called the AMT Theater, and I really look forward to seeing the production there.
And it's Off-Broadway, which is
how exciting is that?
Yeah, well, it's strange because I just got back from 8 days in New York, and I've been to New York several times as a theater person and a theater artist, and you walk around Times Square, obviously, which is so steeped in history of all of it. I mean, it's crazy now because it's like electronic this and that, but walking around that space and then thinking to yourself, I'm working on a show 1 block that way. Wow. It was a little overwhelming at times, and it was really it's been wonderful.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Meg, I know you've seen the play a few times. Can you tell me how you felt the first time you saw this production take the stage?
Oh, let's see. That was in Nebraska, in Lincoln, and it was magical. It was just, and I went. 2 of my guy friends, who were a couple, came out for this from New York, and 2 of my nieces were there, and even the guys were tearing up at the end. I was really kind of taken by all this, and because it is a very emotional play. It has so much, at least for me it is, obviously, and it's different every each time I've been to the productions. They've been local people putting it together, and always with a different little bit of differences here and there, but it's lovely to see that.
Yeah, well, I'm guessing you'll be there opening night in New York. I thank you both so much for taking the time. It has been an honor. Meg, thank you so much. Jen, congratulations to you both.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Meg Crane still lives in New York City, where the play Predictor opens December 14th. Predictor is written by Jennifer Blackmer. This is Pop of Culture. I'm Michelle Kinsey.
And I'm Luke Jones. In 2013, the NPR book staff was tired of those end-of-year lists. Best new books, best memoirs, best sequels. They decided to gather up all the books the NPR staff loved, and that turned into Books We Love. And the 2025 edition is available now. NPR Arts Desk reporter Andrew Limbong spoke to our resident reader, Stephanie Weekman.
Andrew, I am very excited to talk about Books We Love, which I read religiously. This
Thank
year's
you.
list has 384 books.
Oh, sorry. Let's say the neighborhood of 380. Sorry, yeah.
Okay.
The neighborhood of 380 is what I've been saying.
There we go. Over the years, I've seen the total number creep up, and I am not complaining, but is there a rule or a plan on how many books are included every year?
No, we know that it's going to be a lot, and it's sort of like that, Lord of the Rings thing where you're just like waiting for the massive responses to come in when the emails go out. I think some have it's gone up and down a little bit if we were to do like a statistical analysis of all the number of books. But I think generally we know that the folks at NPR, because it is open to everyone, are big readers and are wide and a diverse set of readers. So it's a good to get a good mix. The mass is sort of the points of it all, right? Where the whole thing is like we're not trying to give you here's the 10 that you got to read. It's
right.
Something is in here for you,
Excellent. And like you said, many NPR employees helped contribute to the list, including you. What kind of books did you decide to recommend this year?
So my basis for picking books, and because I'll read a lot and I cover a lot of books or whatever, but my basis for picking them for this list is if I'm still thinking about them come October, right? October, November. I did notice when I was telling my friends, oh, I'm picking this book, I'm picking that book, that a lot of my picks this year have to do with like approaching middle age and feeling weird about it. And I was like, wonder what that could be about. I wonder why this stuff is resonating with me right now.
I just turned 40 this year, so I'm going to look at your list very differently now.
So yeah, there's a lot of that in there. Yeah.
Do you pick a favorite every year?
No, I try not to pick a favorite just because I know, because it changes on day to day and like depending on my mood and whatever emotional crisis I'm going through,
Yeah. So you talked about the books that stick with you. There are some books that stick with me too. For this year's crop, what kinds of things do you still find yourself thinking about with certain books?
So one book that I read early this year was Tilt by Emma Petit. It is a book it starts with a really pregnant woman running an errand at an IKEA when an earthquake hits and she just got to get back home, right? And it's a very simple plot narrative. Person has to go from point A to point B. But along the way, it's interwoven with all these different ideas and thoughts about what motherhood is and the sort of keeping up with the Joneses of parents' life, right? It's just like any young parents are listening, like we're all on like Wirecutter being like, am I going to buy the right stroller or is this going to kill my kid if I don't spend $1 bajillion? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where it takes an everyday instance. Like I thought about it again because I had to run to IKEA for an errand and I was like, thinking about what my escape plan would be. And everyday worry is just about from an earthquake to about the general stress of parenting. And that's the sort of stuff that I think about a lot.
Yeah. Did a book you expect to be mediocre end up surprising you and be spectacular?
Oh, interesting. I was reading Hal Ebbett's Among Friends. It is a debut novel about these two families who go on just like a vacation together and like share a house, that sort of deal where the two families bring their kids and, ennui and crisis evolves from there. At first, it reads very flowery. It reads very purple, and if I thought I was going to put it down because it was a little too much, right? I was like, okay, buddy, debut novelist, he's swinging for it, and then you can't knock him for that. But then it's like a sentence hits, and you're like, oh yeah, brother. And so it's one of those things where I kept reading for the big swings, and maybe some of them miss, but when they hit, they hit.
Okay, all right. You also have a couple of graphic novels on your list. I find those work my reading brain in a different way. I have to slow down. I can't go too fast, and I can't. I find sometimes I have to go back because I miss some of those more graphic details that aren't in the text.
Yeah.
For you, what makes a good graphic novel?
I think so. For me personally, it can depend on so many different things. I picked two this year for my personal list, and they're two very different graphic novels. One is Canon by Lee Lai, and the other is Ginseng Roots by Craig Thompson. You listeners might know him from Blankets or Habibi. He's a
Okay,
big
yes.
award-winning graphic novelist, and they couldn't be more different. I mean, Ginseng Roots is about the history of the ginseng trade between the East and the West, right? It's a very dense historical narrative that interweaves Thompson's own sort of biographical life because he grew up in, a town in Wisconsin that was big on exporting ginseng. So there's a lot in this book about trade, there's a lot about farming, about agriculture. And it's very dense. And this is one of those books that, you would love to spend a slow, long amount of time chewing on because his line work is so densely packed. There's a lot of drawings here and there in the corners of the panel. Whereas Canon by Lee Lai is a very tight narrative about a woman who works at a middling restaurant, right, as a cook who's just going through a lot in her life. There's an ailing patriarch. There's a best friend who kind of sucks as a best friend. There's a crush. All these very simple slice of life things. And the line work in that book is very clean, very spare, very airy. There's a lot of like white space involved until there isn't, right? And makes a big deal of that. And so I think there isn't any one real thing about what makes a good graphic novel other than like it's just beautiful to look at.
Okay. All right. I am a reporter by trade, and 2025 has packed a lot of news into its year. And I find that instead of reading the amount of nonfiction that I normally do, I am turning to fiction. I have friends who are turning to fantasy as a way to escape. Are you finding that trend that people are wanting to read a really good story as opposed to maybe a nonfiction book this year?
Yeah, I mean, the publishing industry, so I cover, I report on books and publishing. The publishing industry is being held up by dragons boning. You know what I mean? Like if you look at the sales numbers, like, and say what you will about how, you feel about romantasy. I know people have mixed feelings about it. Mm-hmm. It is undeniable that economically speaking, publishing would be a wreck, right? A devastation without fantasy. So there are people reading a lot of fantasy these days. A lot of sci-fi is getting an influx of readers. And so, I don't know if it's necessarily a reaction to the news, because I feel like, if I'm not mistaken, this trend line has been going up, increasingly. So it's hard to like pin it on any one thing, but people are definitely like digging into like big, deep fantasy worlds.
Okay. Is there a book or books on the list that you think some readers might judge instead of picking up, and you want to make an impassioned defense for a book?
That's a good. There's a biography of Claire McCardle. She is a fashion designer from the 1930s and 40s, right? The book is called Claire McCardle, The Designer Who Set Women Free by Elizabeth Evans Dickinson. And McCardle was famous for pioneering women's wear, turning it into something more practical, right? Like adding pockets to dresses, adding hoods to sweaters, that sort of stuff. I think if I tell you, here's a biography of a post-war fashion designer, you might think, okay. But it's like, here's a book about America's search for an aesthetic identity. It's trying to separate itself from Europe, trying to figure out what it wants to present itself as. I think that's a better way to sell the book. Excellent. Not that that's my job, but you know what I mean.
Yes. I'm a dress with pockets girl. So I'm very
You have Claire McCardle to thank for it.
Yes.
I know that the gender pocket disparity is still a problem, but without her, you probably might not find any.
All right, I'm adding that to my personal list. Andrew, this has been delightful. Thank you so much, and happy reading for next year.
Thank you.
Andrew Limbong is the host of NPR's Book of the Day. I'm Stephanie Weekman.
I'm Luke Jones.
And I'm Michelle Kinsey. Luke, what book did you love this year?
I wrote that question, then I realized that I was going to have to answer it.
I gotta look up mine. I forgot. But I did read a great one. Hold on.
I am trying to... how many... I think I read 2 books this year. Oh, I read Eat, Pray, Love.
You did?
I'm like 10 years too late on it, but I thought it would be fun. And it was really, really good.
I love that.
What about you, Michelle?
My favorite book this year was Why We Can't Sleep, Women's New Midlife Crisis. And it is a phenomenal book by Ada Calhoun. I was able to hear her speak during Chautauqua this year in New York over the summer. Yeah, and was really intrigued when she started talking about interviewing women from all over the country about, why they can't sleep, what they're focusing on, what stresses them out, and the through lines, the threads, kind of that we're all dealing with the same thing. It was comforting and scary all at the same time, where you're like, oh my gosh, we're all going through this, but then, we're all going through this.
What time of day were you reading it at?
It was when I couldn't sleep at night. You're right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. So we're in between like 11 and 1. So, for a good couple weeks, it was the reason why I couldn't sleep was I was reading Ada Calhoun's book. But a great book. Highly recommend. For the last time this year, it's time to ask an artist, what are you working on?
Maya Doss spoke with professor and contemporary painter Audrey Barcio.
Today on the show, we have contemporary artist and assistant professor at the School of Art, Audrey Barcio. Audrey, I'm so excited to have you. How are you?
I'm great. So good to be here with you, Maya. Thank you.
Of course. We'd love to hear. What are you working on?
Oh, my goodness. A lot of things. Well, of course, most of my time is spent teaching. So the semester's wrapping up and we're finishing up finals and projects. So that's taking a good amount of time. But in my art studio, what I'm working on is a series of paintings for an upcoming solo show that will be at the Indianapolis Art Center this spring.
So awesome. So you sent me that show. It's titled Shifting Boundaries. What is the idea or the concept for this body of work?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of my research and the art that I make looks at equality and unity. So I'm really thinking about how, different identities can be more equal. And so I feel like maybe we're in a time where the boundaries are shifting. And it's about time.
Love that. Like the age of Aquarius, so to speak.
Exactly.
And you did just get back from an art show in Las Vegas at Available Space Art Projects. What was that like?
It was good. It was a solo show. So two of my friends artists run space. And it's Homero and Holly who run that space. And it was a really good solo show of, 9 new paintings that were produced between May and September. So I painted about every single day over the summer to get ready for this show.
I really am inspired and admire how active you are as an artist, even on top of all of your professor responsibilities. I feel like I always hear about you having a new show somewhere. First it was Korea, Las Vegas, Indianapolis. I bet you're tired, but how does it feel to be so active in the contemporary art world?
It feels necessary. I think that for a lot of my time, I've had a full-time job in the arts that, didn't allow a lot of time in the studio. So it was like, working a little bit in the morning, working after work, working on the weekends. So I guess I feel like I'm kind of making up for lost time. And the other thing I would kind of add to that is this is the first job I've ever had where part of my job is to be an active artist. And so I really take that
so awesome
as like a privilege.
Yeah.
And it's, really, I don't want to waste the time, I guess. And also I kind of feel like as a teacher, I want to show like, if I'm expecting my students to work hard, I want to work hard too. So hearing
your story, like as a student of yours, I feel like we've come a long way personally. Like I like looking at our story because I had Audrey's class, I took watercolor, and then I took material and processes. And I have to tell you guys, she is an amazing mentor for me my senior year. It's really cool like to have your professor be someone who's practicing what they preach. So I appreciate that. But I want to give you guys an inside look at what Audrey's work actually is like. So Audrey, will you talk us through maybe some of your similar patterns or stylistic choices you make when you're exploring your ideas?
Sure, absolutely. So the work is within abstraction, and I look at sacred geometry, mostly triangles and then X's. And so, just a really basic rundown of that. A triangle upward represents male energy. It could be mountain, also fire. If it's inverted, it's the female form. It's also feminine energy, and then also valley or water. And so when I put them together, they create a diamond shape. And that's when I think of unity or equality. And when I say that, I mean for everybody, not just those that identify female, but for everyone. The X that comes into the work, it's two paths kind of crossing each other or meeting. And so I think about it as coming from different ideas or viewpoints and trying to come to a middle ground, and maybe something, where both areas can agree to a certain point. A lot of my work is about layering. And so it's not just one layer of paint or two layers of paint being put down. Sometimes there's 50 layers of paint.
Wow.
And so like the painting that's in the faculty show has over 50 layers to it.
That's amazing.
And each one of those layers, it requires, I use a lot of tape to mask off the lines. So it requires putting down tape, making sure that, it is, straight. And,
guys, the precision in Audrey Barcio's work is mind-blowing. Do you do that all by hand?
Oh, yeah.
See, you guys just have to check this out.
And then it's going over it with a bit of a matte medium so that no paint kind of bleeds within the lines or underneath the tape. And then I'm also thinking about surface quality. So is it matte? Is it gloss? Is there any type of, glitter or of a mica or anything like that, kind of reflective material? And then once I have that all set to go, then I put down a layer. And then it takes about 20 minutes to dry. And so I'll move that painting over by a fan, allow it to dry, kind of speed up the process a little bit. And then I'm working on another painting. I'll usually work around like 4 paintings at a time, just kind of depending like what's working. And then every once in a while, there'll be a painting on pause, like it's sort of like the bad kid in the corner. It's not going well, and I just kind of turn it around and
I always say I need breathing room from those kind of paintings. Yeah. I need space to breathe from you.
Exactly.
So what is like the thing that makes you know, like, yeah, this is finished. This is in harmony with my vision.
Yeah, I think simply it's when all the problems are solved, and you can look at it and feel like, okay, that's where it should be.
Which, speaking of, I would like to know, where can our listeners go to find you?
Oh, sure. So I have a website. It's audreybarcio.com. And then also Instagram, which I'm much better updating than my personal website. And my Instagram is Audrey Barcio, same handle. I see basically Instagram as a live website. And so, giving updates, what you're working on, or the newest work or announcements, or sharing any type of press. Yeah.
I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with us, Audrey. Thank you for being on the show today. And I know we can't wait to hear what else. Wait, no, what were you going to say?
Well, I wanted to plug you and your show.
You're so kind.
So, Maya, remind us the name of your thesis show coming up. What's the title?
I'm just titling it Maya.
I love it.
Because my name kind of means the concept that there is no identity, that it's an illusion, that we're all just like God's source experiencing itself. But then also Maya is literally my identity. So that's kind of what my work's been playing with, is like, where is my role in this bigger world,
Yeah. Oh, so great. And so this is going to happen on the 4th floor of AJ. And
we'll have reception December 12th, 4 to 6.
Great.
And then the next day is graduation.
I love it. I love it.
Thank you for being on the show today, Audrey. I know our listeners enjoyed it as much as I did. And don't forget, she's having a show, Shifting Boundaries, at the Indianapolis Arts Center from March 23rd till May 31st. And I am so happy to have had her here with us today.
It is time for the arts calendar. Luke, are you ready to shed some light, holiday lights, of course, on the events going on?
Lights, so I'm so ready.
We've got so many, and I know we're leaving a lot out, but here are just a few in and around our pop of culture listening area, among other things. First, Muncie Civic Theater is presenting Miracle on 34th Street on the main stage November 28th through December 21st. Capture the spirit of the holidays with the musical adaptation of the beloved classic film. MuncieCivic.org has details.
Kick off the holiday season Saturday, November 29th at the Yorktown Luminary Festival. The festival spans downtown Yorktown and Yorktown Middle School, featuring an artisan market, downtown shop hop, Santa's Village, festival food court, ice skating, the tree lighting ceremony, and the always glowing lighted tractor and golf cart parade.
I love that sentence. That's fantastic.
The fun begins at 10 a.m.
Nights of Lights will take over Mounds State Park Campground 6 to 9 p.m. every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, beginning Friday, November 28th. Take in the dazzling display of lights winding through the campground. The Festival of Trees is on at Anderson's Paramount Theater through December 5th. The 36th annual festival features more than 20 decorated trees, wreaths, and more, as well as music performances each night. AndersonParamount.org has more info.
I think we can barely decorate our tree in time.
I know, right? Mine is not up. Confession time. Not up yet.
Gas City will have its 4th annual Let the Lights Shine on Main Street event on Saturday, November 29th. The event kicks off at 5:30 p.m. and includes a Christmas parade.
Lots of parades this year. I love it.
The Ball State Wind Ensemble will perform at 7:30 p.m. Tuesday, December 2nd in Sosa Performance Hall. The program will include Traveler by David Maslanka and Symphony No. 3 for David by Kimberly Archer. And Ball State Jazz will present the Nutcracker Suite at 7:30 p.m. Wednesday, December 3rd, also in Sosa.
Fun. Next week, don't miss a special First Thursday in downtown Muncie on December 4th. It's the Light Up Muncie event that will include the tree lighting at Cannon Commons, a lighted parade, kids rides, ice skating, Santa, food trucks, and the Holiday Makers Market. The event will begin at 5:30 p.m.
And finally, December 9th is a big night for holiday fun in Muncie. You can check out the Enchanted Luminaria Walk at Minnetrista, enjoy dozens of decorated trees at the E.B. and Bertha C. Ball Center Holiday Open House, or stop at all the arts and culture locations on the Ball State campus during its Holiday Arts and Culture Night. A shuttle will run to and from all these events. Hours are 5 to 9 p.m. My goodness.
That's a lot. If you have an event Pop of Culture listeners would love, let us know at indianapublicradio.org/contact, then click Pop of Culture.
Support for Pop of Culture comes from Stallings Wealth Management, the Innovation Connector, and from you. With state and federal money eliminated, you are the difference in keeping local programming on the air at IPR. Become a member today at indianapublicradio.org. And that's our show. Our art director is Tracy Lauk.
This week was produced by Luke Jones, who lights up every Pop of Culture episode.
We had production assistance from Andrew Montavon.
Our audio fellow is Maya Doss. Our show is hosted by me, Michelle Kinsey.
And me, Luke Jones. Pop of Culture is a production from IPR on the campus of Ball State University.